Hello again, everybody. It's Evan Grant, your friendly neighborhood Rangers insider for the Dallas Morning News and dallasnews.com. Coming to you not from spring training this morning, but rather from the home office. I learned this from David Letterman. From the home office here in beautiful Dallas. I just took a little break from spring training for the weekend. There is only so much fun that you can have in Surprise, Arizona before you need to kind of tamp things down a little bit. I need to pace myself. I'll be heading back middle of the week, joining back in on all the fun. But it has been fun. Camp has been fun. We'll get into some of that. But I think first, we're going to need to have a talk, people. I wish I had some mood lighting in here to darken the room a little bit because I think we need to talk. We need to have the rules talk. I'm sensing a lot of trepidation out there from people about the changes in baseball's rules. And I'm going to tell you, I'm here to let you know it's going to be all right. Having watched one exhibition game that took 2 hours and 29 minutes. And listen, I understand that the idea for you is not, oh my God, let's get this over quicker. That's not the idea. I think the idea is let's have better pace. If a game ends up taking 3 hours, but it's because there are a ton of runs scored, or it goes extra innings, and nobody scores with the Manfred man, which is the way I like to call the free runner. That's going to happen, and that's great. But I do think that the idea of the rules, and I think the rule that is going to have the most impact on the way the game is played, or how it that draws the most attention. It's not going to be the shift rule. It's not going to be the bigger bases. It's not going to be pickoff throws. It's going to be the pitch clock. That's going to take some time. It's going to take some time for players and pitchers to get used to, but I think it's a good thing. I really do. Nobody goes to the ballpark to see guys step off the mound and rub up baseballs and go through this whole ritual of touching their hair. I do this in case I had any hair, or tightening batting gloves, tapping the bat on themselves. The idea is let's get guys in the box, let's get guys on the mound, and let's play ball. And I thought Marcus Semien summed it up incredibly well after the Rangers' first exhibition game when he said, look, it felt like baseball. The infielders were where infielders typically play, or had played for the first 125 years of the game. Batters were in the box, pitchers were on the mound, and away we went. I think you're going to like it. I know that there's a lot of people out there that have some angst, and I also know that there are going to be some moments, particularly early on, and probably this spring training, which is the whole idea, because if you're going to have some moments that need some tweaking, better to do it in dress rehearsal situations than in real time. Because let me tell you, I'll give you an example of a rule change. This goes back about a decade. This was obviously back about a decade because Ron Washington was the Rangers manager at the time. And there was a play early in the season in Boston. I can't remember if it was 2007, 8, his first year, or 2009, but there was a rule change regarding the vicinity rule. Umpires saying that you legitimately had to tag second base with the ball on double plays. And the Rangers were called for a rules violation because of it involved the transfer of the ball. Second baseman at the time, I think, was Ian Kinsler. I forget who was covering the bag, whether it was Kinsler or Michael Young, or even if it was a couple of years later, and Jurickson Profar was there. I can't remember the entire situation. I just remember that there was a bobbled transfer at second base on a potential double play, and MLB went back and looked at that rule and made it more clear as to what constituted a transfer of the ball after it was caught versus a guy who simply dropped a flip at second base. So there's going to be some tweaks along the way. We saw a game in Florida on the second day of spring training exhibitions that ended with a batter violation for not getting in the box. Now, I think the one thing that you are going to have to that's going to take some time to get used to. I'm a little bit all over the map. Is with these on the pitch clock. Pitchers have 15 seconds to deliver the ball. Well, to start their first move towards home plate with the bases empty. They have 20 seconds with the runners on. You will notice when the clock starts as soon as they get the ball back. But the second part of that is that batters have until there are 8 seconds left on the clock to be set. So batters have less time to be set. So what I think the hard part that's going to be for some fans to visualize is that there are going to be the potential for clock violations when there appears to still be clock time left out there. And that's what happened in the Boston Atlanta game over the weekend, in which batter wasn't set, 2 strikes, 2 outs, 9th inning, tie game, automatic strike because he wasn't set. And I don't know if baseball is going to have to look at that for certain situations. Certainly, if you're in the 9th inning of a tie game or extra innings, there may be some ability to say, okay, we're going to be a little bit more lax with the enforcement on some of those pitch clock rules, because obviously now you're in a game deciding moment versus a more clear game deciding moment. Anyway, I think that you shouldn't get, what I'm saying is you should not get tied down in these hiccups that will happen early on, or that show areas of the rules that may need a little bit of fine tuning. Because I think overall, whether you're talking about the infielders having 2 infielders on either side of the bag, which is what baseball was designed to look like, what it looked like, how it played, 99.4% of the time, with some various exceptions for guys like Ted Williams over the last 125 years. It's only in the last 7 years that shifts have gotten to a point where they are employed at least the majority of the time against all left-handed hitters. So I think that will revert to looking much more like the baseball that you'll see. I think the ability to have more base hits that go through the right side, which should increase action. I think the bases visually look like pizza boxes right now. They do look big, but they create a difference of 4.5 inches less between first and second and third. And I think that will encourage some more base stealing. But I don't think, I think once your mind's eye allows you to not see the smaller bag any longer, it's not going to be an issue. And with more base stealing and with more ability to know that players like Bubba Thompson and Leody Taveras could have even higher value because of their ability to steal bases, I think it's just going to make the game more exciting to watch. The pickoff, I do think that the limitation on pickoff throws or disengagements to 2 per batter, I think that's still evolving as to how it will impact the game. And quite frankly, I think of all the moves, I think that may be the one that creates the most strategy most strategy discussion. I think that that managers and pitching coaches and defenses are going to consider, all right, when do we want to throw over? How do we want to throw over? What alternatives do we have to holding runners other than stepping off or throwing to the base? And listen, I've been to, Lord knows, well over 2,000 baseball games in my long career with the Dallas Morning News and with Florida Today before it. And I would say that at 90% of the games, more than that, with the first throw over, the home fans are booing, particularly if it's a visiting runner on base. Nobody really cares for the pickoff throw. Nobody loves it. I think it's an important part of the game, and it's an important part of keeping runners in check. But listen, the stolen base was a huge part of Major League Baseball until 2000. And it's basically been taken out of the game. We need to do some things to encourage that, to encourage the value for players like Bubba Thompson, for a guy like Eli White, who now is with Atlanta, who's got the fastest foot speed perhaps that any Ranger had last year, to more involve those players and create more role for them, and to create an opportunity like the seventh or eighth inning. If you're gonna consider a pinch runner, there's real reason to do so, and there is real reason to potentially say, maybe I want to run for my best hitter here because he's slow, and I want to try and win the game right here with a run. So I do think that that's going to add a level of strategy, and I think it's going to be fun to watch. So I really hope that you will give the rule changes an honest go. Don't dismiss them. Don't get bogged down in video clips that you'll see here in spring training of issues that arise. We will have further discussions. We being Major League Baseball, not me. God forbid Major League Baseball would consult me on anything. If they did, your hot dogs would be cheaper. But no, I do think that there are going to be some kinks that need to be worked out, because these are a number of rules changes, and that's what happens with every set of rule changes. Is there are some tweaks, there are some moments that will make you go, oh my God, what have we done to the game early in the process. The hope, and I think the full expectation is that most of those would be addressed before even the season starts. And if not before the season starts, certainly in memorandums to clubs over the course of the season, so that it does not come down to a September game being decided by an automatic called ball or strike. But look, we've had some games decided by balks and stuff like that over the years. So it's just part of the game. Every pro sport is perfect in its own imperfection. We could have the same conversation about defining the catch rule in the NFL. We could also have the same conversation about whether or not it was a great idea for NFL teams or for the NFL to create a situation in which on 3rd and long, teams basically drop back and just threw the ball up in the air hoping for a flag. They're not hoping to really complete a pass a lot of the time. They're just hoping for a flag. The NBA, I part of the problem for me in watching some NBA games is that late in games they can often become foul-a-thons, or they had been. So there's all these there's imperfections in every sport. I think baseball has by and large done a good job over the last 25 years of making changes that are designed to make the game more interesting and more fun and more accessible to everybody. We went through this whole thing 25 years ago about interleague play. Oh my God. Interleague play is a nice refreshing break during the season, and now it's actually going to be incorporated more in that everybody plays everybody over the course of a season. It does take away from some of the uh, emphasis on divisional play. The Rangers will play, for example, they'll play their West rivals. I think it's either 12 or 13 times on each of those, and then they will play in order to accommodate playing every other team. The replay rule, I think, has actually been a good thing. It can bog some games down on occasion. I understand that. I do. I think it has gotten more and more expedited over the years. I think early on we had some really long delays on replay, but I think overall it has been expedited. I still have some issues with some of the calls involving disengagements at bases, on stolen bases, whether a guy was sliding over the bag, and at some point in time, his jersey, as his torso was sliding over the bag, he was disengaged, and his jersey was an inch off the bag or whatever. But I think that is what comes with it. There are no perfect set of rules. Everything has got some exceptions, and in the margins, teams will try to operate to exploit those wherever they can. And that's why you had teams, challenging all these calls at second base that looked like they were safe, but well, maybe a guy, for a fraction of a second was not technically on the base. So that's what you had. I just feel like Major League Baseball has made strides with its rule changes to get calls right, to get fans more involved in the game, and or more interested in the game, not involved, more interested in the game, and to make it more about the play on the field than these long periods of sitting around and doing nothing. So my advice to you, if you're worried about rule changes, is chill. Just, it'll be okay. I promise it'll be okay. I promise in June that you will probably not even notice that the rule has changed. Okay, there will be the occasional automatic ball or strike, and I suppose you could get angry about that, but I don't think they're gonna terribly influence games, and I think it will serve as a warning to both teams to keep things moving along. But I think that what MLB saw was in the minor leagues, the first week that they did this, there were about 1.76 infractions per game. And what I had read was that by the end of that season, it had been halved. So there was less than one infraction per game on an automatic ball or strike call. So there we have it. Meanwhile, so we didn't talk a ton about what's going on the field. And I think that's okay, because this is the first week of exhibitions. You're seeing guys take 2 at-bats. You're seeing pitchers pitch 2 innings if they're starters. I do think that there are some opportunities for guys, and I wrote about this last week after the first exhibition. There are some opportunities for young guys right now to make impressions, to allow them longer looks during spring training that might potentially put them in the conversation for making the opening day roster. I do think this opening day roster is about as set as one could be for the Rangers, barring obviously injury situations. But I think that, quite frankly, the only thing that's left to be decided are probably two spots in the bullpen. And I really think that what will be the determining factor on that will be guys who are on the 40 man. I think right now the 40 man is full. I think when you've got a talented farm system and when you've got talented young players coming through the system, here's a problem you run into. You can't just dispose of guys off your 40 man. Because they're going to get picked up and they're legitimate players and they're going to go elsewhere. So I think it's going to take some more significant circumstances to potentially create room on the 40 man for these guys. But I would keep an eye on Chase Lee, the side arming reliever from Alabama. I think the Rangers really like him. I think they like the fact that with as many really hard throwers as they've got, somebody who can come from a unique angle in the middle of a game between their starters and some of the other relievers, I think has the ability to kind of reset batters' minds a little bit. He's an extreme strike thrower, and he also has the ability to take a little bit of velocity off the ball. He's not a high velocity guy. He's much more of a slider and is using some changeups too. So I'm interested to see what he does. He had a pretty good first outing in the spring opener, a scoreless inning. The important thing was to see how he fared against right-handed hitters. He was great against them his first year coming out of college. He struggled a little bit last year. So he faced 4 consecutive right-handed hitters for Kansas City, had a scoreless inning, pitching around a 1-out double on a hanging slider. And there were 2 hanging sliders that he threw in that inning. One was hit really hard for a ball just foul. The other was hit for a double. A little bit hard to judge the effectiveness of sliders in Arizona because of you've heard this before too, the dryness of the ball, the dryness of the air, the inability to get tackiness on the ball, doesn't spin quite as well, But I think that, as Bruce Bochy said after, we're going to take a look at him. He's going to get some work out here. So that would be the first non-roster guy I'd focus on right now if you're looking at guys who have a shot to make this roster, who are not here. But again, there's going to be, or who are not on the 40 man, but there's going to be some challenges to all of that. I think when it gets right down to it, if there's any kind of close call, I think the Rangers are going to start the season by saying, let's protect the assets we have. And we will let guys in the minor leagues continue to earn it and force our hand and let us know, hey, we've got better talent now than we did at the start of the year. That's my gut feeling. I also know that, look, you've got an entirely new baseball operations hierarchy, and Chris Young may be more willing to make final decisions quicker. I don't know. I think that I think what I saw with John Daniels is over the course of his time here, I think that he operated from the traditional perspective some. But I think as he got older in the position, I do think he became a little bit more risk averse to saying, oh, well, this guy had a great spring training. Let's put him on the roster and make a final decision with somebody else that we're going to lose. Because those things come back to bite you. You're giving away a guy for free who may help you when you don't have to. That's basically the way I look at it. So, and now to everybody's favorite segment, the best thing I put in my giant belly this week. Since I was home, we had birthday dinner for my stepson. Everybody say happy birthday, Nick. So you are probably right now looking at a picture of a giant lobster that looks like it's got some little peppers in it. This was the Lobster Fra Diavolo at Town Hearth, one of my favorite restaurants in town. And Chef Nick Badavinas has been a family favorite for really since he opened Neighborhood Services, and we've had just about every important big family moment at one of his restaurants. This lobster was I'm just going to say this. I split it with my wife, and it was still a lot. It was a 3.5 pound lobster, and that's all they. That's where the lobster sizes start out at Town Hearth, because they're big on size matters there. So, but it's got great, nice al dente spaghetti in there, some Fresno peppers that you see, a kind of a charred tomato sauce. It's not a thick red sauce like you would get with a pasta. It's more of closer to a salsa. So that's why I call it a sauce. It's a sauce and a salsa. Seltzer. I'm George Costanza. I might as well just do that anyway. So it was fantastic. Ton of lobster meat in there. And my wife and I split it. Yes, we did, but I have to say that when it comes to shellfish, I'm a little bit selfish. So I ate probably more than my share, as I usually do, but Gina was a good partner, as she always is, and let me indulge. So that was great for the non-fish eaters. They specialize mostly in steaks. Nick and his lovely girlfriend Katie split a steak that they just absolutely loved, and they also have a dessert on the menu there that they call the Elvis, which is flaky pastry in the shape of a Napoleon, if you know your desserts, and it's layered with peanut butter, chocolate, and bananas underneath a meringue. This is the Layers International Sign Language, and it has been on the menu since they opened close to 10 years ago, and it is delicious. It's a great dessert. So that's the best thing I ate this week. You kind of got 2 for 1, but only 1 photo. I'm still yet to find something particularly invigorating in Surprise. It is the land of chains. To this point, I'm eating so much because they're the 2 closest places to the ballpark, and we run out to grab lunch before games start. I've downloaded the Jersey Mike's app and the Raising Cane's app, because those are the closest places to the ballpark. But look, Mike makes a nice sub, really does, and the Canes, they do a nice job with a chicken finger. I like the cane sauce, and they do a nice job with. We call them chicken fingers in my days. Now you call them chicken tenders because I guess we want to be anatomically correct. Anyway, that's it for this week, folks. I'll be back in Arizona next week, and I'll talk to you then. Take care. This is good video.